Admiral Reed stared at the report in his hands, his weathered face tight with concern. The data didn't make sense. It couldn't make sense. "Play the sensor recording again," he ordered, his voice echoing in the command center of Galactic Union Outpost Delta 7. The holographic display flickered to life, showing empty space near the border of human territory. Then, for exactly 3.7 seconds, something massive appeared. The readings suggested a ship nearly 2 miles long before it vanished again. "Sir," his second-in-command said, "that's the 4th sighting this month. Whatever it is, it's getting bolder." Reed nodded slowly. Or desperate. He made his decision. "Get me Commander Thompson. His ship is closest to the border." Commander Jack Thompson was finishing his daily exercise when the call came through. At 42, he still maintained the fitness routine from his early military days. His gray-streaked brown hair was damp with sweat as he answered. "Thompson here." Admiral Reed's face appeared on the screen. "Jack, I have a mission for you. Unusual one." Thompson listened as Reed explained about the ghost ship, the impossible readings, the technology that made no sense. When Reed finished, Thompson raised an eyebrow. "You're sending my reconnaissance vessel to chase a sensor ghost. I'm sending the best ship with the best crew to investigate something that could be first contact, or it could be nothing. Either way, I need someone with good judgment out there." Thompson nodded. "When do we leave?" "Immediately." The Sparrow was small by military standards, but perfect for reconnaissance. Only 300 feet long, it could slip into tight spaces and had the best sensors in the fleet. Its crew of 12 was among the most experienced in the Galactic Union. In the ship's mess hall, Thompson briefed his core team. "So we're ghost hunting now?" Lisa asked, the tactical officer's skepticism clear in her voice. At 35, she had served with Thompson for 7 years and didn't bother hiding her thoughts. "The Admiral believes it's worth checking out," Thompson replied. "The readings make no sense," said Mark, the science specialist. His fingers tapped on his datapad as he reviewed the information. "A ship that big would need a power source beyond anything we've developed. And these energy signatures." He shook his head, glasses sliding down his nose. Ben, the chief engineer, leaned forward. "I'm more worried about how it appears and disappears. Nothing should be able to do that without leaving some trace." Thompson nodded. "That's why we're going. To find answers. We reach the coordinates in 10 hours. Get some rest." As the Sparrow neared the location of the last sighting, the tension on the bridge was thick enough to cut with a knife. "Anything on sensors, Mark?" Thompson asked, standing behind the science station. Mark shook his head. "Nothing unusual. Just normal space." "Keep looking. Whatever this thing is, it." The ship suddenly lurched. Warning lights flashed across every console. "Gravitational distortion," Mark shouted. "Massive. Coming from nowhere." "Full reverse engines," Thompson ordered. Ben's voice came over the comm. "Engines responding, but we're being pulled toward something." Thompson gripped the back of Mark's chair as the stars outside seemed to bend. "What's out there?" "Nothing," Mark insisted, his fingers flying over his console. "Wait, that's impossible." Before their eyes, space itself seemed to fold. Where nothing had been a moment before, a massive ship materialized. It dwarfed the Sparrow, easily 10 times its size, with a design that was both familiar and alien. The hull was clearly human in architecture, but with configurations and technology Thompson had never seen before. "Shields up. Lisa, defensive positions," Thompson ordered. "Shields at maximum." "But sir," Lisa's voice faltered, "we're being scanned by something our systems can't identify." Mark's eyes widened. "Commander, that ship, it's putting out energy readings beyond anything in our database. But the design, it's human. Human." Thompson moved to the front viewport, staring at the massive vessel. "Hail them." "No response to standard frequencies," Lisa reported. The Sparrow shuddered again. We're caught in some kind of tractor beam. Ben's voice was strained over the comm. Nothing like I've ever seen before. I can't break free. Thompson watched helplessly as his ship was pulled toward the giant vessel. As they drew closer, he could make out details on the hull. Strange markings that looked like standard human naval identification, but in configurations he didn't recognize. All hands, prepare for possible boarding, Thompson ordered. Lisa, Mark, Ben, with me to the airlock. If they want to talk, let's be ready. The Sparrow was drawn into a massive docking bay that could have held 20 ships its size. As the bay doors closed behind them, Thompson and his team stood at the airlock, weapons at the ready. Atmosphere readings outside are normal, Mark said. Breathable air. Stay alert, Thompson ordered as the airlock cycled. When the door opened, they were met not by aliens, but by humans in uniforms Thompson didn't recognize. They carried weapons, but kept them holstered. A woman stepped forward from the group. She appeared to be in her 50s, with short gray hair and the bearing of someone used to command. Her uniform was dark blue with insignia Thompson couldn't identify, but the 4 bars on her collar suggested captain's rank. Commander Jack Thompson, she said with a slight smile. Right on time. Thompson felt a chill run down his spine. You know who I am? Of course I do. I've been waiting for you. She extended her hand. Captain Kate Morris, commanding officer of the UEA's Eternal Vigilance. UEA's? Thompson asked, not taking her hand yet. That's not a designation I'm familiar with. Kate's smile faded. United Earth Ship. A designation that won't exist for another 70 years. She looked at each member of Thompson's team. Welcome aboard. We have much to discuss. Who are you people? Lisa demanded, her hand hovering near her weapon. We're humans, Kate answered simply. Just like you. That's impossible, Mark said. This ship, the technology, is 200 years beyond your time, Kate finished for him. The Eternal Vigilance isn't just a ship that shouldn't exist in your understanding of physics and engineering. It's a ship that shouldn't exist in your time at all. Thompson finally found his voice again. You're claiming to be from the future. Kate's eyes met his, filled with a weariness that seemed to go beyond normal human exhaustion. We're not claiming anything, Commander. We are from your future, a future where humanity faced extinction. She gestured for them to follow her. And we've come back to prevent it from happening. As Thompson and his team followed Kate deeper into the impossible ship, the enormity of what she claimed began to sink in. If she was telling the truth, everything they knew about the universe, about time itself, was about to change. Thompson and his team followed Captain Kate through corridors that seemed both familiar and strangely advanced. The walls were lined with technology that hummed with energy unlike anything they had ever seen. This ship is impossible, muttered Mark, his scanner out and recording everything. These alloys shouldn't exist. Kate smiled over her shoulder. Most of them don't yet. Not in your time. They entered a large circular room that Thompson guessed was the command center. Screens showing star charts and data displays covered the walls. Men and women in the same dark blue uniforms worked at stations, some turning to look at the visitors with curious eyes. This is the bridge of the Eternal Vigilance, Kate announced. She gestured to a large holographic display in the center of the room. Computer, show temporal displacement event. The display lit up with a 3-dimensional image of a massive space battle. Hundreds of ships fired at each other among the stars. At the center was the Eternal Vigilance, taking heavy damage from strange ships that looked like nothing Thompson had ever seen. What am I looking at? Thompson asked, his eyes fixed on the brutal battle. The last stand of humanity, Kate replied, her voice heavy. 217 years from now, in your future. Lisa stepped closer to the display. Who are you fighting? The Void Collective, answered a tall man who approached from across the bridge. A coalition of 17 species united by one goal, the complete extinction of humanity. Kate nodded to the man. This is Commander Robert West, my second in command. Thompson looked between them. Why would these species want to destroy humanity? Fear, Robert said simply. Fear of what we would become. Kate touched the display, zooming in on one of the enemy ships. The collective believes that humanity is destined to dominate the galaxy. Rather than risk this future, they decided to eliminate us before we could reach our potential. In our timeline, Robert continued, they nearly succeeded. Earth fell. The colonies were destroyed one by one. This ship carried the last 50,000 humans when we made our final stand. Thompson's mind raced with questions. But how are you here? Time travel isn't possible. It wasn't possible in your time, Kate corrected. She touched the display again, showing the eternal vigilance surrounded by a strange energy field. This is what saved us and doomed us. The hologram showed the ship being hit by a massive energy weapon. Instead of exploding, it seemed to fold in on itself before disappearing. Our quantum displacement drive was damaged during the battle, Kate explained. When it was hit, it created a temporal rift that threw us back through time. We appeared in your time about 27 years ago. 27 years? Ben asked, finally speaking up. You've been hiding in our time for that long. Kate nodded. We had no choice. Our ship was badly damaged. Most of our crew remains in stasis, and we couldn't risk changing the timeline. But you're talking to us now, Thompson pointed out. Isn't that changing the timeline? We planned to stay hidden, Robert said grimly. Until 3 months ago, when our sensors detected something that shouldn't be here. Kate waved her hand over the display again. It showed a small ship with an unusual design. We detected Void Collective scouts in your space. They're here, Commander Thompson. Centuries before they should be. Thompson felt a chill run down his spine. Are you saying we're being invaded? Not yet, Kate said. But they're preparing. In our timeline, the Collective spent decades infiltrating human space before they attacked. They sabotaged our ships, turned our allies against us, and studied our weaknesses. Mark shook his head. This is impossible. If what you're saying is true, why come back at all? If you change history, you might erase yourselves. Robert laughed bitterly. You think we don't know that? But what choice did we have? Kate's face grew serious. The truth is, Commander, our temporal displacement wasn't completely an accident. The eternal vigilance was designed with a last resort protocol. If humanity faced extinction, the ship could attempt a temporal jump. She led them to a wall that slid open to reveal a massive chamber beyond. Inside were thousands of sleek metal pods stretching as far as Thompson could see. 50,000 souls, Kate said quietly. The last survivors of Earth and its colonies. Scientists, engineers, artists, children. A complete cross-section of humanity, preserved in stasis, along with the sum total of human knowledge and achievement. Thompson stared at the endless rows of pods. You're saying this ship was meant to travel back in time? As a final option, yes, to warn the past, or, if necessary, to preserve humanity somewhere in time where they could start again. Kate turned to face Thompson directly. But now we face a new problem. Our presence here may have drawn the Collective's attention to your time. Lisa frowned. You think they followed you somehow? Not exactly, Robert said. But in discovering how to manipulate time, humanity wasn't the only species to make breakthroughs. The Collective had their own temporal research. We believe they detected our temporal signature, Kate added. And now they're moving their plans forward by centuries. Thompson looked around at his team. Ben appeared overwhelmed. Mark was frantically taking notes, and Lisa watched the future humans with suspicious eyes. What do you want from us? Thompson finally asked. Kate met his gaze. We need your help, Commander. We can't contact your government directly. We would be seen as a threat. But you can bring information back. Warn them about what's coming. And if I don't believe you? Thompson challenged. This could all be an elaborate trick. Kate smiled sadly. She walked to a nearby console and typed a command. A small compartment opened, and she removed a metal disc which she handed to Thompson. "Your family farm in Iowa. The oak tree by the lake where you carved your initials when you were 9. The broken wrist you got falling out of it. The promise you made to your grandfather that you would see the stars for him." Thompson's hand tightened around the disc. "How could you possibly know that?" "Because in our timeline, Commander Thompson, you became Admiral Thompson, one of the designers of this very ship." Kate's eyes held his. "That disc contains your personal logs from 60 years in your future. Your voice, your memories, your warnings." Thompson looked down at the disc, then back at the endless rows of stasis pods holding the last survivors of humanity. "We have a day before Admiral Reed expects us to report back," he said finally. "Show me everything." Admiral Reed paced the length of his office, checking the time display on the wall for the 5th time in an hour. The Sparrow was now 12 hours overdue for its report. "Any response to our signals?" he asked his communications officer. "No, sir. Nothing from Commander Thompson or his crew." Reed frowned. He had sent his best people to investigate a sensor ghost, and now they had vanished. "Prepare a search team. I want to know what happened to my people." Meanwhile, aboard the Eternal Vigilance, Thompson sat in a dimly lit room, watching recordings from a future that no longer existed. He had spent hours listening to his older self describe the fall of humanity, the surprise attacks, the betrayal by supposed allies, the final desperate battles. His future self looked tired, with deep lines etched into his face and white hair, but the eyes were unmistakably his. "It's strange," he said to Kate, who sat quietly nearby, "hearing my own voice describe events I never lived through. In our timeline, you were one of the last admirals of the human fleet," Kate said. "You helped design this ship as a final hope for our species." Thompson rubbed his eyes. "And now the enemy is already here, centuries too early." The door slid open, and Lisa entered with Robert. "Commander, you need to see this." They followed them to the bridge, where Mark and Ben were already working with the future crew at various stations. Mark looked up excitedly. "Commander, we've been analyzing the collective's communication patterns from Captain Kate's data and comparing them with current transmissions. We found matches." Robert pointed to a display showing a star map of human territory. Several points were highlighted in red. "These are locations where we've detected communication bursts matching collective patterns. They're setting up a network," Kate explained, "just like they did in our timeline, but centuries earlier." Thompson studied the map. "Most of these are near shipping lanes or military outposts. They're preparing for strikes against key infrastructure," Robert confirmed. "In our history, they disabled our communication networks before launching their main attack." "We need to warn the Union," Thompson said firmly. Kate shook her head. "Not yet. We have no proof they would accept. If we reveal ourselves now, we risk being treated as the threat." "So what do we do?" Thompson asked. "We strike first," Kate said simply. "We've located what we believe is their forward base. It's disguised as an abandoned mining facility in the Cygnus sector." Lisa studied the tactical display. "That's deep in neutral space. If we're wrong." "We're not," Robert assured her. "Our sensors can detect their quantum signatures. They're there." "Then let's go," Thompson decided. "But the Sparrow stays here. I won't risk my ship being seen near collective forces until we know what we're dealing with." Kate nodded. "We'll take you on the Vigilance, but you should know, once we take action, we can't go back. History will change forever." Thompson looked around at his crew, then back at Kate. "History already changed the moment you arrived in our time. Now we need to make sure humanity survives this time around." The Eternal Vigilance moved through space unlike any ship Thompson had ever seen. Instead of using traditional jump gates, it seemed to fold space around itself, appearing near the Cygnus sector without warning. "Quantum displacement drive," Ben explained, his eyes wide with wonder as he studied the engine readings. "They can partially phase out of normal space and reappear almost anywhere." On the bridge, Thompson stood beside Kate as they approached what looked like an ordinary asteroid with a small mining facility built into its surface. Scan complete, reported one of Kate's officers. We detect 27 collective life signs and 3 of their scout ships inside the facility. Any defenses? Kate asked. Basic shields and some weapon emplacements disguised as mining equipment. Kate turned to Thompson. Your call, Commander. This is your time, not mine. Thompson felt the weight of the decision. If what you've shown me is true, these beings are planning to wipe out my species. We have to stop them. He nodded firmly. Proceed with the attack. Kate gave the order, and the Vigilance moved into position. Its weapons were unlike anything Thompson had seen, beams of energy that seemed to ignore the facility's shields completely. Direct hit, reported the tactical officer. Their communications array is destroyed. They're powering up their ships, Robert called out, attempting to flee. Disable them, Kate ordered. We need prisoners for questioning. The battle was brief and one-sided. The collected ships never had a chance against the advanced weapons of the Vigilance. 2 were captured in tractor beams, but the 3rd managed to activate some kind of emergency system. They're charging a temporal displacement device, Robert shouted. Stop them, Kate ordered, but it was too late. The 3rd ship vanished in a flash of light. Thompson turned to Kate, alarmed. What just happened? Kate's face was grim. They've escaped, not just from here, but possibly through time as well. And they'll warn others. Mark approached with a data tablet. Captain, we've analyzed their communication logs. They were sending regular reports to at least 12 other locations throughout human space. And look at this. He showed them a screen full of data. They've been monitoring Union communications for months. Kate exchanged a worried look with Robert. It's happening again, but faster this time. What does this mean? Thompson asked. It means, Kate said slowly, that by coming back to save humanity, we may have accelerated the very conflict we were trying to prevent. As they returned to the Vigilance, Thompson's communicator suddenly activated. A delayed message from Admiral Reed ordering their immediate return. He sounds worried. Lisa noted. Thompson played the rest of the message, and his blood ran cold. Unknown ships have appeared throughout Union space, Reed's voice said. All contact with Outpost Beta 9 has been lost, and the Arcturus delegation has just withdrawn from the Union without explanation. Something is happening, Jack. Get back here now. Thompson looked at Kate, whose face had gone pale. The Arcturus were the first to betray humanity in our timeline, she whispered. It's starting. Thompson realized that the future war Kate had escaped was no longer a distant threat. It had already begun. We can no longer stay hidden, Kate said, standing before her senior officers and Thompson's crew. The collective knows we're here. They know we've come back in time. The bridge of the Eternal Vigilance was tense with the gravity of their situation. The holographic display showed multiple Void collective ships appearing across human space. Thompson watched the red dots multiplying on the map. We need to warn Admiral Reed and the Union leadership. And tell them what? Robert asked. That we're from the future. That we accidentally brought an advanced enemy back with us. We tell them the truth, Thompson said firmly. We show them proof. Kate nodded slowly. He's right. The time for secrecy is over. She turned to her communications officer. Set course for Union Command, and prepare the evidence files. Admiral Reed's face showed a mixture of disbelief and anger as he stood in the secure conference room surrounded by Union military leaders. Before them, displayed on screens, were Kate, Thompson, and the bridge of the Eternal Vigilance. You expect me to believe this fantasy? Reed demanded. Time travel, future wars, a ship that shouldn't exist. I know how it sounds, sir, Thompson replied. But I've seen the evidence. I've seen our future. The Void Collective is real, Kate added. They've already infiltrated your systems. The ships appearing in your space are just the beginning. An older woman with general's insignia leaned forward. Even if what you say is true, Captain Morris, Why should we trust you? Your very presence here violates every law of physics we understand. Because the alternative is extinction, Kate answered simply. In our timeline, humanity didn't get a warning. We're offering you one. Reed shook his head. This could all be an elaborate trick. For all we know, you could be the real threat. Just then, an aide rushed into the conference room and whispered urgently to Reed. His face paled. What is it? Asked one of the other officers. Reed looked up at the screen. 3 colony worlds just reported simultaneous attacks by unknown ships. New Eden, Horizon, and Terra Nova. Kate's expression hardened. Those were the first worlds to fall in our timeline, too. It's happening again. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. What do you propose, Captain Morris? Reed finally asked, his skepticism replaced by grim urgency. Let us help you fight them, Kate said. The Vigilance has technology centuries ahead of both your ships and the Collective's current forces. And in return, a chance for the 50,000 souls aboard my ship to live in this timeline. A second chance for humanity. Reed looked around the room at his fellow officers, then back at the screen. Very well. But Commander Thompson stays with you as our liaison, and you will follow Union protocols. Kate nodded. Agreed. Within hours, the Eternal Vigilance led a counteroffensive against the Collective forces attacking the colony worlds. Union ships watched in awe as the massive warship from the future deployed weapons they couldn't even understand. On the bridge, Thompson stood beside Kate as they directed the battle at New Eden. Their ships are retreating, reported the tactical officer. Don't let them escape this time, Kate ordered. Target their temporal drives first. The Vigilance fired precision beams that cut through the Collective ship's defenses like they weren't even there. 2 enemy vessels disabled, Robert called out. The third is. He stopped, looking at his console in confusion. Captain, we're detecting a transmission from the third ship. It's aimed at the Union fleet. A face appeared on the main screen, looking almost human but with subtle differences that made it unsettling. The eyes were too wide, the skin too smooth. People of the Galactic Union. The figure spoke in perfect English. I am Thomas Grant, representative of the Free Worlds Coalition. What you are witnessing is not salvation but invasion. Thompson stepped forward, staring at the screen. Who is this? Kate, do you know him? Kate shook her head, her face confused. He's not in any of our records. Grant continued, the ship calling itself Eternal Vigilance is not what it claims to be. In the future they come from, humans became the aggressors. They started the war that consumed countless worlds. He's lying, Kate said, but her voice lacked its usual certainty. Ask them why they really came back, Grant said. Ask them about the weapons they designed to target non-human species. Ask them about the forced assimilation programs. His strange eyes seemed to stare directly at Thompson. They aren't saviors. They're the harbingers of humanity's darkest future. The transmission cut off as the Collective ship jumped away. The bridge was silent until Admiral Reed's voice came through the comms. Captain Morris, what the hell was that? Kate looked shaken. I don't know. That person, or thing, wasn't in our historical records. Could he be a time traveler too? Thompson asked. Possibly, Robert said. But how? And why didn't we know about him? Reed's voice was cold. I want answers, Captain. Now. Back at Union Command, trust was rapidly eroding. Military leaders watched the recording of Grant's message repeatedly, looking for clues or confirmation. We checked our databases, one intelligence officer reported. There's no record of a Thomas Grant matching this description. But his claim that the Vigilance is actually from a timeline where humans were the aggressors. It's a lie, Thompson insisted. I've seen their records. I've heard testimony from my own future self. Records can be fabricated, Reed pointed out, and we only have their word that the person in those recordings is actually you. Kate stood at the window, looking out at the stars. Admiral, Why would we come back just to conquer? We could have done that without warning you, without revealing ourselves at all. Unless you needed our trust first, Reed suggested. Unless this is part of a longer strategy. Thompson could see the doubt spreading through the room like a virus. The same officers who had just witnessed the Vigilants defend their colonies were now questioning everything. The next collective attack will target your shipyards at Proxima, Kate said suddenly. In our timeline, they destroy your ability to build new ships before launching their main offensive. Reed studied her. And you know this how? Because it's what I would do, she answered. Cut off your ability to replace losses. The Admiral was silent for a long moment. Very well. We'll reinforce the Proxima shipyards. But the Vigilance stays here, under our guns. As they left the meeting, Thompson fell into step beside Kate. They don't trust us anymore, he said quietly. Would you? She asked. In their position. Thompson didn't answer. The truth was, he wasn't sure what to believe himself anymore. Grant's words had planted a seed of doubt even in his mind. Kate, he finally said, I need to know. Is there anything you haven't told me about your timeline? About why the collective really wanted humanity gone? Kate stopped walking and turned to face him. Her eyes held a weariness that seemed to span centuries. The truth, Jack, is that history is written by the survivors. And we are all that's left of humanity in our time. Whatever the truth was, it died with Earth. The eternal Vigilance floated in space, surrounded by Union ships watching its every move. Inside, Kate stood before a massive door that had remained sealed since their arrival in this time. Are you sure about this? Robert asked, concern clear in his voice. We have no choice, Kate replied. Trust is broken. We need them. Thompson stood nearby with Lisa, Ben, and Mark. They watched as Kate placed her hand on a scanner beside the door. Captain Catherine Morris, she said clearly. Emergency Protocol Omega. The massive door slid open with a hiss. Cold air poured out as lights activated automatically inside, revealing rows upon rows of stasis pods stretching into the distance. The awakening process has begun, announced the ship's computer. What are you doing? Thompson asked. Kate's face was grim but determined. Waking the sleepers. All 50,000 of them. Why now? Lisa demanded. Because soon we'll face the full force of the collective, Kate explained, and we need every advantage we can get. As they watched, one pod near the entrance began to open. Inside was an elderly man with white hair and a face lined with age. Despite this, Thompson recognized him immediately. That's me, he whispered. The older Thompson's eyes opened slowly. He looked around in confusion until his gaze settled on his younger self. A small smile crossed his weathered face. Commander, he said in a raspy voice. Right on time. Admiral Reed could hardly believe what he was seeing. Standing before him in the Union Command conference room were two Jack Thompsons, one in his 40s, the other well into his 80s. This is impossible, Reed muttered. And yet, here I am, the older Thompson said. His voice was stronger now, after a few hours of recovery. Admiral Reed, you look exactly as I remember. If you're really Thompson, tell me something only he would know, Reed challenged. The older man smiled. The night before your promotion to Admiral, we got drunk on that terrible whiskey from Titan Colony. You told me you were afraid you didn't deserve the position. I told you that doubt is what makes a good leader. Reed's face paled. Jack never told anyone about that conversation. Because I never did, the younger Thompson confirmed. More pods were opening throughout the Vigilance. Older versions of Lisa, Ben, and Mark were awakened, creating surreal reunions between younger and older selves. Kate explained, when these people were selected for stasis, we chose those with the most knowledge, the most experience. Those who would be most valuable if humanity needed to start again. But why include us? Thompson asked his older self. Because we helped build this ship, the older Thompson answered. We designed it not just as a weapon, but as an ark. While the awakened future humans worked with Union scientists to integrate their advanced technology, the collective launched its main attack. Hundreds of ships appeared throughout human space, targeting military outposts and colonies. On the bridge of the Vigilance, the two Thompsons stood side by side as they watched the battle unfold. Grant was lying about one thing, the older Thompson said. Humans didn't start the war, but he was telling the truth about something else. We did build weapons that targeted specific species, out of desperation, after they had already destroyed Earth. Kate nodded grimly. The line between defense and revenge blurred in those final years. The younger Thompson looked between them. Then what really started this war? Why do they hate us so much? Before they could answer, Robert interrupted. Captain, we've detected something strange about this Thomas Grant. Our sensors show he's not human at all. He appears to be a metamorph. A what? Lisa asked. A shapeshifter, Kate explained. Certain species in the collective can alter their appearance to mimic others. The older Thompson's eyes widened with sudden understanding. That's how they infiltrated our governments in the original timeline. They didn't just turn our allies against us. They became our allies. Robert's console beeped urgently. Captain, we've detected a massive temporal distortion. Something big is coming through. On the main screen, space itself seemed to tear open. A massive ship emerged, a vessel that dwarfed even the Vigilance. The Harbinger, Kate whispered. The collective's flagship from our time. It shouldn't exist yet. Grant didn't just warn them, the older Thompson realized. He brought them forward in time. Union ships fought bravely against the collective forces, but they were outmatched. Even with the advanced weapons of the Vigilance, the battle was turning against them. In the engine room, Ben worked frantically alongside his older self, trying to maximize the ship's power. The temporal drive is destabilizing, the older Ben warned. We're pushing it too hard. On the bridge, Kate received the news with a grim expression. How long do we have? Hours at most, came the reply. Then the drive will collapse. The older Thompson approached Kate. You know what we have to do. She nodded slowly. It was always the last option. What are you talking about? The younger Thompson demanded. The Vigilance was never just a warship, Kate explained. Its primary mission was preservation, not destruction. The older Thompson placed a hand on his younger self's shoulder. When we designed this ship, we built in a final protocol. If all else failed, the temporal drive could be used to create a temporal shockwave. It would erase all time manipulation in the area, Kate continued. Reset the timeline. But at a cost. The younger Thompson understood. The Vigilance would be destroyed. Along with everyone aboard who doesn't belong in this time, the older Thompson confirmed. As the battle raged, Union ships formed a protective ring around the Vigilance. Inside, frantic preparations were made. The awakened future humans worked to transfer their knowledge to data cores that could survive the shockwave. The stasis pods are being converted to escape pods, Robert reported. But we can only save a fraction of our people. Kate stood before her crew, both from the future and the present. In our timeline, humanity faced extinction and lost. Today, we have a chance to change that story. The younger Thompson watched as his older self coordinated with the engineering team. Will you remember any of this? He asked. After the shockwave. The older man smiled sadly. No, but you will. That's enough. As the Harbinger closed in for the kill, the Vigilance began to glow with strange energy. Escape pods launched in all directions, carrying the knowledge of the future to safety. On the bridge, Kate, Robert, and the older Thompson remained at their posts. Temporal drive at critical levels, Robert reported. Shockwave imminent. Kate looked at the younger Thompson. Get to your ship. Return to the Union. Tell them what happened here. What about you? He asked. We've lived our lives already, the older Thompson said. Now it's your turn to write history differently. As the Sparrow pulled away with Thompson and his crew aboard, The vigilance erupted in a blinding flash of light. The shockwaves spread outward, engulfing both Union and collective ships. When it faded, the Harbinger and the other time-displaced vessels had vanished. The vigilance was gone, leaving only debris floating in space. Years later, Admiral Thompson stood on the observation deck of the UES Vigilance II, the first of a new class of ships built with technology salvaged from the future. Still thinking about them? Lissa asked, now his second in command. Thompson nodded. Every day. Did they die, or just return to their own time? I don't know, Thompson admitted. But they gave us a chance. A second chance for humanity. As his ship patrolled the borders of human space, the sensors briefly detected something strange. A massive ship that appeared and disappeared in an instant. A ghost ship that shouldn't exist, but somehow still did. Thompson smiled. The eternal humans lived on, guardians across time itself.